And today I have as my special guest author and remote worker, Allie Renar. And, we always like to travel on the Maria Liberati Show, travel to different places, even if it's just by interviewing or visiting a place through the Zoom interview. And today, well, Allie's in Seattle, but her books are really interesting. They're all about travel to interesting places, and she also has an interesting book about house sitting, and she's going to tell us how you can travel the world using house sitting as a means of seeing the world. So, Allie, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
Great. And it sounds like you also involve your 5-year-old daughter in your books, right?
Yeah, so the original idea that I had for it was, what if I wrote a book about her experiences traveling? Because so many kids grow up in a really sheltered environment, and my daughter does not have that. So she was born in Morocco. We have lived on 4 different continents in her life, in 8 different countries, and we visited more countries than that. So she has a different perspective than you hear most children have. And she'll talk about places in the context of the country that it's in, and about places that she saw. And as an example, this morning she went to preschool. She goes to a forest preschool, and she took this little cat that we got in Paris with her. It's like a little doll. And she takes it to school, and she says to her friends, "This is the cat I got in Paris. Paris is in France, and I saw the Eiffel Tower." And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool if other kids who don't have the opportunity to travel yet could learn about places that maybe they would never see, because we've been to some really unique places.
Yes, yes. Yeah, oh, definitely. I think that's a wonderful idea. They may not, at least they may not have seen them now, or they may not get to see them till they're a lot older.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely great to be able to do that, to give the kids some knowledge about other countries and visiting them. And I'm sure she probably goes to school and she'll be talking about this stuff, and they're probably like, huh? Like, they don't know
Yeah,
what she's
that's why I
talking
knew that. That's why I knew it was really unique, because she
about.
goes
Right.
to a school, I would say it's a very affluent program. So
Oh,
you have
there
a
you
lot of,
go.
you
Very
know,
cool.
um, higher income people
Yes,
who send their
yes.
children to this type of program. So the kids there, most of them have been somewhere.
Oh, there you
But
go.
even in the context of that place, my
Right.
child has been to way more places than
Yes.
any of these other people.
I was
And
thinking that.
she loves to talk about all the
Yeah.
things she's experienced. She has a really great memory, so she will
Uh-huh.
tell you really intricate details about some place that she was 2 years ago when she was 3 years old.
Wow.
And so I knew that that was something that was interesting. And the other thing that I know from interacting with children, besides just my own, is that they love maps. And
Oh, yeah.
so I included little maps in
Uh-huh.
the books of the
Uh-huh.
places that we've been, so they can
Uh-huh.
kind of see the locations, because children just love maps for some reason.
Wow. I didn't know that, but that's very interesting. So let's talk about some of these interesting places. And I know Morocco was one because your daughter was born there, right? That's what you had told me.
Yes.
So
Yes.
tell us some because I included have never been to Morocco, and I'm sure a lot
Okay.
of my audience has not been. Tell us some interesting things that about that, and maybe point out something in your book.
Yeah, well, in the book that is about Morocco, we visit many different cities,
Uh-huh.
and there's a lot of unique places in Morocco that I had never heard of until I was there.
Right,
We were living in Rabat, which is where the American consulate is, so you'll see a lot of
right,
Americans and foreigners in
right.
that area.
Uh-huh.
But we traveled to different places like
Uh-huh.
Tangier is on the northern part of Morocco, and you can take a ferry from Tangier across the water to Spain, because it just crosses the Mediterranean. And so
Uh-huh.
when you go to Tangier, the beach there is very calm. It
Uh-huh.
has really clear water,
Mhm.
but in the city, what you see is a lot of like beatnik stuff. Like you see people playing the blues. You see a lot of older expats because in the 60s and 70s, people went to Morocco and they smoked hashish and they, stayed there for a very long time writing books. And I
Uh-huh.
think Jack Kerouac was in Morocco for a while.
Uh-huh.
So you see a lot of that kind of culture in
Right.
Tangier, but each place is like its own individual location because when you're in Tangier, it's very kind of Americanized and kind of funky. And if
Uh-huh.
you go to um, like Chefchaouen, it is a old city literally carved into stone.
Oh
And
my,
so you have like all the steps and all the houses are carved into stone and everything was painted blue.
wow.
And there's different accounts on why, but according to Moroccans, they say that it was painted blue because of all the Jews that moved there during the, Hitler's
Uh-huh.
occupation. They
Yeah.
came to Morocco as a safe place, and they all lived in this area apparently, and they painted the houses blue as a symbol of their faith. And so it's beautiful because you're literally surrounded by all the stairs, the walls, and we have
Right.
that featured in the book as one of the places that we went because it was
Uh-huh.
so memorable.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that for people who've never been to Morocco, I would say that every part of Morocco is totally different. There are some parts that are really rural, and then there are some parts that are more like a city. There's beaches where we lived in Rabat. We had the beach, but it was on the Atlantic Ocean.
Uh-huh.
So it was like big waves. You have to really be a good swimmer to be hanging
Oh.
out in the water there.
Uh-huh.
But they have nice beaches. We had an apartment near the beach, so you just kind of walk a little bit and then you go down there. But it was something that if you ever go, what I
Uh-huh.
recommend is go early in the morning
Uh-huh.
because most Moroccans do not go to the beach in the morning. They go
Uh-huh.
in the afternoon after they've eaten lunch, they go to the beach. And so in the morning, it will be deserted and
Oh,
you will be the only person on the beach. So you have the whole beach to yourself.
oh
And it's a
wow.
really great experience just to be able to really enjoy the water and the sand and, the scenery out there. But if you go later in the day, you can have the opportunity to ride a camel or a horse on the beach because there will be vendors who will sell you a camel ride for I think it was allotted to maybe like $5 American.
Oh
So
wow. Oh wow.
yeah, your money
Yeah.
will go really far in Morocco too. So
Yeah. So, and tell us about, I know, so Morocco is one place, and some of the other interesting places you've been to.
yeah. So we've been to a lot of places.
Yes.
We were in Morocco and then we went to Mauritius, which is an island off the coast of Africa in the Indian
Uh-huh.
Ocean.
Uh-huh.
And that's a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
They do sugarcane there as their main export.
Right.
But the cities are like small beach towns. Everyone
Uh-huh.
there was really friendly. They actually drive on the opposite side of the road because they were colonized by Britain.
Oh,
And so I didn't
yeah.
know that before I went there. I didn't think to look what side of the road people drive on. And then I rented a car, and I get the car seat and put it in and
Oh
I look and
wow.
I'm like, the driver's steering wheel is on the wrong side of this car. And then I look around and I notice people are driving on the wrong side of the road.
Oh
And I
my
was
gosh.
like, oh no, this is
Oh
not what
wow.
I was expecting. So then I had to drive, across the countryside from the airport to the beach town that we were going to.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
like, I've never driven on the wrong side of the road. So
Oh,
that was a different experience, but it's not busy there. So it's not like,
oh well,
traffic
that's good.
freaking you
That's
out while you're trying to learn how to drive on the wrong side of the road.
yes.
But it was really beautiful there. My daughter and I, we got to swim with sea turtles.
Oh wow.
You can do a lot of the same things there that you would do in like Hawaii, but it
Uh-huh.
costs so much less money. It's
Oh,
apparently a hidden secret of Europeans. They go there a lot, but Americans have mostly never heard of it.
never heard of it.
So yeah, while we were there, we saw people from Sweden, people from France, people from England, and there was a lot of Europeans, but we were the only Americans that I saw there. I did not meet one single other American because it's
Wow.
just so far away. Most people have never heard
Right.
of it. It's so small that when you look
Exactly.
at a map, it's not
Uh-huh.
on it.
Oh,
unless
yeah.
you zoom in really far, you're not going to see it on a map.
Right,
So
right.
that was a beautiful place.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, we actually went to Madagascar,
Oh,
which people have heard of
yeah.
because it's, of course, known for lemurs. I will say that was not an experience it wasn't what I expected it to be. You see
Uh-huh.
people who go to Madagascar and they post videos about it. And something I
Right.
think that is kind of annoying is that a lot of times travel bloggers only post about the good parts of
Right.
something. They don't tell you about like the hard parts. So they're like, oh, look at this beautiful resort you're at. And what they
Yes.
don't tell you is when you get there on the plane, you have to drive 12 hours through the jungle to get to that resort.
Oh my
And when
goodness.
I say jungle, I mean there is no road. There is no actual road. There is just like a rut driven through by all these Jeeps and stuff. And people don't even have car seats for you to put into the cars. And you're lucky if there's a seatbelt. And so that was
How
a
about getting gas
crazy
for your
experience.
car or diesel fuel? What do you do then? Like if you're driving 12
You
hours?
don't. They have like gas cans in the back because you don't. There's literally from the airport to the resort that we went to, which is the most popular resort they have.
Right. Uh-huh.
Um, there between there's one city, but it's 9 hours. So
Oh,
you're on a 9 hour trek, and in between there's nothing but jungle. And then after that city, you go through kind of a really windy, steep area, and there's a
uh-huh.
few like villages with
Right.
no electricity, huts and such. So you're not getting gas there. So you have to
Wow.
make it at least 9 hours before you're going to be
Uh-huh.
getting any gasoline. So the people that were driving us, because you hire a driver, you can't drive yourself through. So the people that were driving us, they had gas cans in the back of
Oh, yes.
the SUV.
Yes.
And they say get all the food you're going to want to get, and there's
Yeah.
nowhere to stop and go to the bathroom. And they're like, you shouldn't do it in the jungle because there's snakes and lizards and crocodiles
Oh my
and
God.
some type of cat that eats lemurs,
Oh,
which
man.
I forget the name of it, but it was scary looking. We did see one of those, but we
Oh,
never
really?
managed to. And we were there for over a month.
Uh-huh.
So I would say that's one place I would say I wouldn't recommend it.
And then
But
so what happened when you got to your resort at Madagascar? How was that there?
well, the resort itself seemed nice. I mean, there was a very beautiful beach. They have this really dark sand, so it looks really nice. It's very clean beach because it's private. There's nobody there. It's just you, right? We had rented out this entire kind of like cabin at the resort, so we had a refrigerator and everything, which was great,
Oh,
except for what we didn't realize was that everything there for electricity is run off solar
oh, wow.
and there isn't enough. And so they turn it off every evening. And so anything in your refrigerator is actually unrefrigerated for 12 hours every
Oh my
night.
goodness.
So I ended up getting really sick.
I
Um,
imagine.
you can imagine.
Yes.
And then the other thing was just that they have these, it's kind of like in Bali, if you've ever been to Bali, they have these kind of on the tops of the buildings, there's these kind of like carved, beautiful looking openings
Uh-huh.
where, the breeze comes through. And they do that in Madagascar, but
Uh-huh.
also the lizards and giant spiders come through as well.
Oh
So
my
they don't
goodness.
use screens, it's very like
Yes.
exposed
Yes.
to
Yes.
nature.
Oh,
So it was an interesting experience for sure. And then we
uh,
had to drive back through the jungle to get to the airport to leave.
oh
So it was
my.
a whole lot more than I was expecting because when you look up, people are talking about, oh, they went, and all they talk about is the part when they got there, and they don't tell you
They
how
don't tell you
they don't
how.
say how they got there. Yeah,
Exactly. So one
crazy.
thing I wanted to touch upon was because we don't have a whole lot of time, but I wanted to touch upon this that I thought was so interesting. And we certainly can have you back another time
Yeah,
too, because I love all these interesting places that most people I know don't get to go there. So the idea, I know you have a book about house sitting and how to do that. And you
yes,
said that you can travel the world house sitting and it's less expensive and I'm sure much nicer than being in a hostel. So
yeah,
tell about that. I'm sure there are some of my listeners out there might be interested in doing that. It sounds like a nice idea. I, I just as a side note, I always tell people when you go to a country, try to experience the culture of that country,
Hmm.
because I know, like, I'm an expert on Italy. So, but I know a lot of people that go there and they want to know where the American style hotels are and they eat American style. And I
Yeah.
tell them,
You never really see what it's like.
no, if
Yeah.
you want the beauty of what Italy is about, you need to stay, experience the culture, stay in like maybe a B and B or
Yeah.
like a home like you're saying. So I think that's a really good idea because you get more of a way to experience the culture wherever you are, even if
Yeah.
it's in the United States, because each city has its own kind of vibe to it. But anyway,
Mhm.
so why don't you tell us about how did you get into doing that?
Yeah.
And and
Well, I started doing house sitting early last year, and it
uh-huh,
was not because of travel. So I had traveled previously, using Airbnb, hotels.com, etc., right? And
uh-huh,
and I started house sitting because I was commuting really far to my daughter's forest school.
right.
And I'm trying to save money to buy a house. So I didn't want to rent an apartment because, that's just like throwing your money away. I didn't want to live
Yes.
close to her school because it's too expensive there in Seattle.
Yes.
And so I found this idea of house sitting where there's tons of people with animals usually, but sometimes they don't have them, who they go on vacation and they need someone to come to their home. And so I signed up through a few different websites, but the one that I like most is Trusted House Sitters.
Uh-huh.
And I talk about the whole process of how to become a 5-star house sitter because that's how you get more better stays is to have high ratings. And so I talk about that in my book.
Uh-huh.
But basically, when you start house sitting, you have to market yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
What is your expertise that you're going to give to people? And so I have many years of dog training, and I even worked in a dog boarding place, 2 different dog boarding places in my life.
Uh-huh.
So I have all of that experience. I know how to give pets pills. I can, take care of various types of animals, all the way, dogs, cats, chickens, guinea pigs, rabbits, etc. Right?
Uh-huh.
And so you have to market yourself. So that's something
Yeah.
that I talk about how to do effectively in my book. But once you're there and you start to get the stays, you build up your reputation and you'll see that there are house sits all over the world. I have actually seen house sits listed in Mauritius, which,
Wow.
that's really far away.
Yeah.
There's tons of them in certain places like Australia. It's a really big thing in Australia. So if you ever want to go to
Wow.
Australia, house sitting, New
Uh-huh.
Zealand, in the UK, in
Uh-huh.
Europe. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I've seen them in Iceland. I've seen them in, Barcelona. I've house sat in Amsterdam. I've been to Stockholm through house sitting,
Uh-huh.
Paris, and in Seattle, greater Seattle area,
Yeah.
Colorado, New York. Some places in America don't have really that many, like in the middle mostly,
Uh-huh.
but along the coast, San Francisco, um, in Oregon, even up in Washington, all through Canada, you'll find tons of different house sits. And so, what you do in these cases is you're going to pay yourself to get there. So, you're going to get a flight, right?
Right.
But you need a flight to go anywhere. And
Yes.
then once you get there, you're living in someone's actual home. So,
Right.
you are in a place where people really live, right?
Uh-huh.
Not in a hotel. You have
Yeah.
all the accommodations of someone actually living there. So, what I notice in many Airbnbs is they give you like one fork, one
Uh-huh.
spoon, right?
Yes.
You can't really cook there. You can only
Right.
really bring takeout and eat it there. And
Right.
so when you're house sitting, they have all the amenities for
Oh,
cooking.
yes.
Most people cook in their homes, at least sometimes, right?
Yes.
They have like comfortable beds because they sleep there. A lot of people, they're going to have a streaming service, so you have something to watch.
Right.
They're going to have
Wi-Fi.
some type of work area in their home. Most
Yes.
people do.
Uh-huh.
And so you are basically living like a local. When we
Uh-huh.
were in Amsterdam, they even allowed us to use their Bakfiest bike, which is a bicycle that's electric and it has a little kind of basket on the front that a
Wow.
kid and a dog can sit in. And so we took their little beagle to the park with us every day and we got to ride this bicycle,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't have to pay for cars. I didn't have to rent a bicycle. I
Wow.
didn't have to pay for the tram. I could ride this
Right.
bike all over town because their
Wow.
biking system is great in Amsterdam,
Yes, I know it
and
is. I've been
paid
there.
for
Yes.
the food that we bought, which I bought from the grocery by and large, right?
Uh-huh.
Mostly grocery store, didn't have to eat
Yeah.
out too often. And
Wow.
then I paid for like sightseeing, which I did through Go City because they have really great passes, so you can just see everything and you paid up front and you're not paying individually for each thing, and it's way
Right.
cheaper, like a million
Right.
times
Right.
cheaper.
Yes.
And then that's it. Like souvenirs. I bought souvenirs, but
Yeah.
I
No,
looked it up and I did the math on the
I was going to
cheapest
say your only
Airbnb I
cost
could
is,
have booked.
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, the cheapest Airbnb I could have booked in Amsterdam, for we were there for 3 weeks. It would have cost us over $5,000
Wow.
just for the cheapest Airbnb. And I even looked up to see, okay, well, what does a hostel cost? Because I'm not going to go to a hostel. I have a kid,
Right.
but some people might,
Some
right?
people.
Hostels in Amsterdam are at least $50 a night.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you're not paying for any of that,
Yes.
right?
So
And you have
what
the
I was
comfort.
just going to say is I didn't mean to interrupt you. So, but to
No,
break it
no.
down, so your main cost is getting there and then just
Yes.
your little extra things. But really, I mean, my favorite thing to do when I'm somewhere other than home is to actually go to grocery stores and shop for
Yeah.
food and then
Yeah.
bring it
You get to
and
do that. You can see all their
learn
local
about,
products.
learn about that. So it's just
Hmm.
getting to the grocery store, which is probably much less expensive than going out to eat all the time. And then
Oh yeah.
souvenirs and little side trips if you want to do it. But you don't have that cost of the hotel or whatever you want to go to, right?
Hmm.
And so that's
Yeah.
great. How long do your house stays usually last for?
So it really depends on the thing, but mine are usually between 1 week and 3 weeks. I booked, I think, two that are over a month. So that's not that common, but I have seen them for
Right.
longer.
Uh-huh.
It just kind of depends. And the thing is that you get to set up your profile to attract the type of house sits you want. So mine, it specifically says your pets have to be kid friendly, right? Because I've got
Right.
a kid. If you don't have
Yeah.
a kid, you can see way more sits than I'm going to see because tons of people are marking their pets as not kid friendly because they don't have
Not kid
kids and they don't want
friendly.
to take the risk,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then you have a lot more. You
Uh-huh.
can say, well, I wanted there to be a car that they let me use. There are house sits, plenty of them, that
Uh-huh.
allow you to use a car. So now you don't even need to rent a car, right?
Wow. Wow.
You can
Yes.
tell it, I want to go to the beach, and it'll show you all the ones that are by a beach. You want to
Oh,
be in a mountain or a city, you can select a specific country you want to go to.
exactly.
So what I did, I
Uh-huh.
planned a whole summer vacation and I said, we're going to see if we can house sit all over Europe, right? And
Uh-huh.
so I made myself some filters for alerts for
Uh-huh.
all the countries I wanted to see. And
Yes.
then once they came up, a new person, has posted that they need someone, I apply, tell them about myself, they see
Uh-huh.
my profile, and then we set something up, right? And so usually you do, if you're not local, you usually do like a Zoom call ahead of
Zoom
time
call.
so
Uh-huh.
that they can kind of talk to you to make sure that it will work for both of you. If you
Yes.
are local, you can go meet their pet in person at a park that's near them. That's usually what we've done. And and then once you're sure it's going to work out, you book it through the platform. The platform is really great because they insure everything. So if anything goes wrong, we
That's what I
use
was
the
going to
highest
ask
level
about.
of the sitter
Uh-huh.
account, which means
Uh-huh.
that we get free airport lounge passes.
Uh-huh.
We also get insurance if, let's say, I plan a trip to Amsterdam,
Uh-huh.
okay,
Uh-huh.
and that's a week out,
Uh-huh.
and the people can't go on their trip, so they cancel on me. And I have flights and all that. If that happens, the
Uh-huh.
house sitter platform will try to help me find a new sit in Amsterdam. And if they
Oh,
can't, they will pay for a hotel.
oh, wow.
So I
And what's
still
the
get to go.
Yes. Oh, that's great. I was going to say, and tell us the name. We unfortunately time is. I just got a notice
Yes.
time is ending. But tell us the name of the platform that people can go to if they want to do this. I think it's a wonderful way to travel the world and or even the country because you get to experience. the culture, the vibe of the place that you're in more so.
Yes, I
And
agree. So yeah, it's trustedhousesitters.com. However, I will say that if you buy my book on Amazon, the Kindle version of House Sitting, House Sitter's Guide to the Galaxy, sorry,
okay.
inside the Kindle version, there is a link to Trusted House Sitters, and that will give you 25% off your yearly subscription.
Oh, that's
So
great.
if you use my link, you get
Yeah.
25% off, which saves you, if you're on the highest plan, it saves you over $50.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I think, as I said, I think this is great information. And it's come, the time of the year where people do most of their traveling is pretty much
Yes.
starting, and it's coming up very soon. So I think that's definitely a great way. I think that's a much easier if you have kids too, if you can take the
Oh,
kids
yeah.
to do house sitting
Yeah.
than trying to schlep them to a hotel, or it's much
Yeah.
easier, more
And I mean,
comfortable.
especially if you go to someone's house that already has kids, the
Right.
great part about that is they have toys.
Oh,
And so
that's
you
great.
don't have to pack toys, right? And
Oh,
your
that's
kid,
great.
they get like the novelty of playing with someone else's toys, which they love, the
Yeah.
idea that these are
Oh,
different
yeah.
toys.
Definitely. That's great. Well, Allie, thank you so much for being with us today. And so where can people, do you have a website, or are people just,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead, tell us your
Yeah,
web.
you can find all of my books on allierenar.com. They are sold directly through Amazon. They're on Amazon Kindle and Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
But on my website, I have direct links to them, so you can see all of them and order them. You can also, if you are interested in having me house it at your home because maybe you're going out of town and you want to try it out, definitely you can contact me through my website as well, and I'll be happy to supply you with a 25% off link for Trusted House Sitters, because
Uh-huh.
I think that it's a great platform. You only pay for it once a year.
Yes.
And I mean, for less than $300, you
Right.
can travel all over the world and just you're not paying accommodation. So can't
Exactly.
be cheaper than that.
No, definitely not. That is really, really interesting. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and hopefully we'll have you back to tell us about some other, I'm sure you're going to be going to some other interesting places as well in the near future.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for being here.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.